so we'll stop at 9:50, present those awards and have a morning tea break. Do we have apologies? Could I ask everyone to be upstanding, please? I acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we work and live and pay respects to elders past, present and emerging. If we can please observe a minute's silence as a mark of respect for the members of our community who have recently passed. We wish their family and friends peace and comfort during this challenging time. Thank you. Item number 6. Do we have any declarations of any conflicts, material personal interests by councillors or senior officers? No conflicts. Thank you. We'll move to item 7, confirmation of the ordinary meeting of the 25th of August. Can I have a mover of those minutes of the 25th of August? Mover and a seconder. Councillor Wilkes is moving. Seconder, Councillor Hodge. Those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Matters arising from those minutes. So we've got some matters arising here on the screen. The first one there, that was from Councillor Cardew. Are you satisfied you've got the response there, Councillor Cardew?
Yep, got a response for that, thank you. I just want to mention that if we can, my request was that we have a monthly update. I just want to note that as expedient as we can with this, because it is affecting people's income, and if we can get it fast and soon as possible, it would be much appreciated.
Thanks, Councillor Cardew. The second one there, Councillor Hodge, related to maps, location of maps.
I think that's, that's been done. I think they're getting amended at the moment and will be provided in due course.
Thank you. And the next one was also about the maps, yes. And the next one, Councillor Hodge requested a workshop with councillors to discuss the swimming pool.
Yeah, I can speak to that and just ask that the lessons set out what they seek to discuss back through the contractual process.
Yeah, there is a part that will come at a later date once that's been settled in regards to a proposition that he wants to put forward to council. So we'll deal with that then.
Thank you. Is that the last of them, Jackie? Oh, the Melinda Falls, sorry. So this one here, councillor Hodge, requesting an update on progress preparation of the lease for Melinda Falls Caravan Park. Have you received an adequate response, councillor Hodge?
Probably not adequate because it's been going on for so long, but I think it's in the process and it should hopefully be coming at the next meeting. I'm not quite sure.
So, through the chair, if I may. So we've now got the final submission from the tenderer, and we're preparing an update for council through a workshop before we take it to the council meeting.
That's fine, thank you.
Very good, thank you. And that is the last one?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Any other matters arising from those previous minutes, councillors? Okay, thank you. Now, before we move on, we've got we had a special meeting a couple of weeks ago because when tomorrow was declared as a public holiday for the Queen's passing, we had to reschedule this meeting to today. So we had a special meeting on the 13th. On the 13th of September, we had a special meeting to shift the meeting from tomorrow until today. To shift this meeting from tomorrow until today. Can I have a mover of those? Before I move it, can I just, in the record, if we can just change ordinary meeting to special meeting, if we can do that. And can I have a mover of those minutes of the 13th? Councillor Bilton is moving. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Hayden seconding. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Okay, item 10, we'll go to item 10, which is a mayoral minute. So, councillors, I tabled a mayoral minute yesterday and shared that with councillors. So, what I've got here is the mayoral minute that's up on the screen there. This basically stems from the land valuations which have had a fairly significant impact on our Category F and Category G landholders in particular. That's our primary production and our broadacre grazing. So what we've done here with this mayoral, what I'm proposing with this mayoral minute is that council makes representations to the Valuer General regarding the attachment of water licences to land values. It's our understanding that water licences have been attached to land values, and this has exacerbated the spike in valuations of land. And it's our understanding that farmers have made representations to the department or to the Valuer General about this, and we will also make representations to the Valuer General about the attachment of water licences to land values. And in addition to that, we've also added in here, we've wrapped in some of the other work that council is undertaking so that we're better equipped to deal with land valuation spikes in the future. So we just want to make sure that our rating categories, our differential rating categories, are as agile as they can be, and look at things like banding, perhaps, in some categories, which may give us more agility to minimise the impact of land valuations when they happen. So, councillors, I put to you this mayoral minute with those 4 items on the board. And just the 4th item at the bottom, the document that I passed around yesterday referred to the Department of Resources. We've changed that to Valuer General. So we've changed Department of Resources to Valuer General in the one that's on the screen. We think that's probably the more direct representation we should make. So I moved that, and I put that to councillors. Those in favour of the mayoral minute?
Point of order, Mr. Mayor. Do we have the right to discuss this matter?
You have the right to talk to it. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Are
councillor.
we voting it on it, or are we? I'm sorry, I've lost track of where we are. Are we
Yeah.
voting in favour, or I'd like to make some comments.
Well, you can talk to the motion.
Can I do that, Dan?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Councillors, I applaud this motion, and Mayor, I really applaud this motion. I want to, I think it'll go a long way towards, I'll use the term that I'll use, is beginning the process of healing the relationship between agriculture and the TRC. I want to make the point, and councillors around this table will know that I regard this as a belated step, that we should have done this earlier. I nevertheless strongly applaud it. I think this step, and in company with the establishment of the Agricultural Advisory Committee, will leave us a very, very good platform in the future, and for future councils to improve dramatically our relationship with agriculture.
Thanks. Any other councillors like to talk to that one? Okay, councillors, those in favour of the mayoral minute, it's up on the screen. Carried, thank you. Okay, item 11.1, amendment to the investment incentive policy. Do I have a mover of the officer's recommendation? Councillor Bilney and Councillor Hodge. Okay, Councillor Bilney.
Look, the report itself is very comprehensive. If we could perhaps get the officer to just have a round out of what the changes are.
Thanks, over to you, Angelo, thank you.
Yep, through the chair. The changes are meant to, in summary, broaden the eligibility, so including dual occupancy, also including those projects that were approved prior to the commencement of the policy but had not yet commenced, so just trying to get those projects across the line, just to tidy up on some definitions, and from feedback from the planning department, there was some confusion about the reconfig of a lot, whether it applied to residential, so we removed that reference.
Very good. Any further questions?
Yeah, just
Councillor
so
Hodge.
that we're very, very clear on this policy. Can we just go through the track changes if Martin, with Angela?
Yep.
So we all know exactly what we're talking about.
Yep. So local supplier definition just expanded to make it broader. Inclusion of dual occupancy.
Just go back to that local supply.
Yep.
There's a bit there where it says an entity out who's got an office outside the TRC but employs people inside the TRC.
So the definition was taken from our procurement policy. Okay. So this is a definition for council. Yep. Dual occupancy. So duplexes, 2 households involving 2 dwellings. Removal of the reference where some community groups might receive a grant to build some community housing or social housing. We felt that appropriate that they be eligible to receive support. Government departments are still ineligible. And I think that's basically it. There's some other minor changes there, but
Just number 5, just make sure we're clear with that.
yep. So you'll only support those developments that have a approved on or after commencement of the policy, and those developments approved but not commenced. So a whole backlog of projects that are in the pipeline that haven't yet commenced prior to commencement of the policy are now eligible. So trying to clear that backlog and bring forward development. And obviously the same conditions of the policy apply to those developments.
Very good. Thank you. Any more questions on this one? Those in favour of the officer's recommendation? Carried.
Thank you.
Okay, item 12.1, recreation vehicle policy position for planning scheme. Can I have a mover to open the report for discussion? A mover and a second to open the report for discussion. Councillor Hodge is moving to open it for discussion. Councillor Wilkes. Those in favour? Carried. Okay, Councillor Hodge.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Mayor. The 2 points, everyone has received an email last night from Manager of Planning in regards to the table, which I'll be moving the amended table in the officer's recommendation. Basically, the main thing is that it takes under the agricultural land precinct, the whole lot will become impact accessible. There will be no self-assessable, there will be no code. So that gets taken out. Now, and especially too, I know that a lot of the caravan park owners will probably be watching this online today. My ears were burning this morning, but we've tried to make this as fair and equitable as we can. We have removed, and I'll go to the manager soon, we've taken out, I think, rural residential, emerging communities, the 8 hectare precincts. So we have the 2 main ones, the broad hectare left and the general rural precinct. Now, but the big thing that has come to me from these people is if we're going to do this, if we're going to put this policy in place, we have to be able to police it. So otherwise, if we're not going to police it, we might as well not do it at all. We might as well just scrap it. So I'd like to hand over to the Manager of Planning, if you don't mind, and maybe ask ways that we may be able to police this going forward. And maybe talk in regards to infrastructure charges that will be coming in that are not now and those sorts of things.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you. Yep.
Thank you, through the chair, if I may. Thank you for the question, and I think we have come a long way with regards to these proposed amendments. There has been very robust engagement, consultation and discussion about these amendments. We also had discussions as part of our normal enforcement processes with people who have gotten the idea from various publications and websites that they can invite caravans onto their site without any sort of issues, and we had a number of discussions with people in this position. We issued a few short cause notices because, and what we told these people is, whilst operation of nature-based tourism is part of our tourism strategy, recreational vehicle strategy, there are planning scheme amendments on foot, which are meant to bring an easy and constructive avenue for you to potentially look at doing these activities in a local manner. However, you can't do them without us knowing about them, without having the right processes in place. So we have a few people waiting. That's the first thing I wanted to say, because people are generally quite prepared to do things in a legal way if that legal way is explained to them. Now, what we did following from this is what we did in order to see what the situation is out there in the field is we generally act on complaints. We can be proactive, and it is council's decision what level of enforcement and the compliance checks he would like him to see as reasonable in these situations. The internet and Facebook and the likes are giving us an opportunity to keep an eye on what's happening in our communities in order to make sure that nuisances do not occur. Other agencies do exactly the same thing, and we will certainly do this. I think an important point that you mentioned is that as a new use on land, it actually puts an added strain on council's infrastructure, and it's just fair enough that infrastructure charges be levied. In the majority of the cases, infrastructure charges for a site will be in the order of $750 for one site. And those infrastructure charge notices will still be sent, and people will need to pay them as their contribution to council's infrastructure. So we will need to make sure that we collect those ones as well. So in summary, yes, we certainly, what we're doing with these amendments, in my opinion, is we open the door to facilitate, in various cases, the development of this tourism in an orderly, lawful, and fair manner. And we will have to make sure, by a compliance and enforcement process, that people don't do that in any other way.
Okay, thanks very much.
Councillor Clifton.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'm directing my question to the CEO. Do you see that the passage of this document will create an extra enforcement role? And do you see that? Do you have a view upon what staff we have available to do that?
I wouldn't see it generating an extra enforcement role. It may increase enforcement responsibilities as any amendment to the scheme that's going to allow more developments that we don't currently have, and there's been a corresponding need, potential need. I think as the manager's just said, and support his comments, that most people seek to do things the right way, Councillor Clifton, not just take shortcuts once they're aware of what the right way is. So I wouldn't see that we're going to be requiring staff changes as a consequence.
Very good. Councillor Billney.
Excuse me, through the Mayor. I'd just like to acknowledge the extensive amount of work that has been undertaken to get to where we are today. I would agree that the planning scheme needs to be contemporary and relevant. However, my firm view is that the manner in which we currently assess these applications is prudent and best practice. Under the proposed amendments, there is still the ability to self-assess, and providing they meet the assessment thresholds, they can commence operation. Whilst this is streamlined, it does not provide officers with an understanding of what is happening around the Shire and whether they are compliant. It's currently occurring largely without council knowledge. Further easing of the planning stream will only intensify the current issues of compliance and regulatory protection of natural assets and the environment. My suggestion would be to look at ways to reduce our own internal processes that may encourage potential applicants to legitimise their operations and provide officers with information about what is happening, where and when.
Thanks, Councillor Billney. Councillor Cardew.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Look, it has been contentious, and what we're trying to do is have some sort of written guidelines in our plan scheme to deal with these nature-based activities that have been occurring around our Shire with unlawfully as it stands at the moment. So we're trying to fix these things up. From my information over the years, there's three different types of people in caravans or RVs. There's ones that predominantly like staying in caravan parks. There's ones that only stay in caravan parks at certain times, whether it be to utilise facilities or refresh or refuel or what have you. And then there's ones that won't stay in caravan parks. They're the ones that will utilise free camping or the like. So we've got to be able to cater for all sorts of travellers and tourists to our area. The real thing behind this is the word nature-based. Nature-based, in my mind, is where people have the opportunity to stay on rural properties and enjoy the ambience of the area in its natural beauty. you don't, that's not available in caravan parks. So we're trying to cater not only for those people, but also it gives an opportunity to rural landholders to improve their income streams. And, you know, up until just recently, the income for rural landholders has been very difficult, you know, given the prices in the market, the way the market has been in the agriculture and in the beef and the dairy and the like. So it provides another income stream for them, for those people as well. As far as policing is concerned, I'm a landholder. If I was to go down this path and allow people to on my property, I certainly would not be allowing people to make a mess of my property or anything else on my property that would cause concerns to my neighbours or surrounding people. So I think, yes, it is a bit contentious. I understand the point of view from the caravan park people, but we do need to try and cater for everyone. And I think I'll be supporting this amended motion that Councillor Hodges put up, because I think it's a way of trying to cater for the needs of everyone as opposed to a few. So I'll be supporting the motion. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. We'll go Councillor Hayden, thank you.
So just a point also, caravan park owners pay up to $50,000 in rates. They also pay in that $1,500 to the state government for the state government levy, and yet property owners who can have up to 30 plus people or vehicles on their properties pay $120 plus the valuation of their property. I just find this a bit unfair that then they'll still only pay that, and yet they're allowed to have multiple people on their properties, and yet caravan parks are hit in every way. I just find it a bit unfair, and we're always policing caravan parks. They follow regulations, they've got to jump through hoops, and I just think it's not really quite an equal playing field.
Thanks, Councillor Hayden. Anyone else before we go back to Councillor Hodge to talk on this one? We'll go Councillor Clifton, and then we'll come back to you last, Councillor Hodge.
Was that just a point of clarification? I think there's to Councillor Hodge. In your amended motion, under general rural precinct, you've got less than 40 hectares in accepted development and less than 60 hectares in 100 metres from the, so the property, is it 40 or 60, or is it 40 in both?
It should be 40 in both.
Okay. It's just a point of
In the
clarification.
code. Great. It's all got 60 in the code.
Okay. I will correct that, my apologies. That is correct, yes, that is a mistake here.
So, just a clarification on that. So, which is that going up on the screen there? Is it? I'm not sure where that was referring to.
This here, it's an image, so I can't actually change it.
Yeah.
I'll
Okay.
have to change it.
Greater than 40 hectares.
Yeah.
Greater than 40 or greater.
Thank you for taking it off.
In the broad hectare one,
In the general rule.
in the general rural.
Yes.
You
So this
notice
one over here.
in the accepted development, it's got 40 hectares,
Yes.
but in the code, assessable, it's got 60, it should be 40. It should be.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I see. Yeah.
Yeah,
In the
I'm
same
with you.
column. Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, gotcha. Okay, councillors, is there any more discussion on this matter before we seek a mover and a seconder of a motion?
Yes, just one.
Councillor Hodge?
Okay, I'd just like to, so we get it clear to the manager of planning, under the accepted development, they still have to apply, don't they? Or they don't. They don't, there's no form, there's no nothing. Is there any infrastructure changes that we accept?
Through the chair, yes, there is an infrastructure charge which is calculated on the number of sites.
Right.
That is correct.
Okay.
An infrastructure charge notice will be sent out.
Councillor Clifton.
Sorry, Mayor, to pursue that with the manager planning, but in the general rural precinct, for example, accepted development, 6 RVs, you know, let's say it's within the rules, do we get to know about that?
It still triggers infrastructure charges, so when people normally come to us and ask us for a pre-lodgement, they ask us for advice on what to put a use to commence a use, and we will be giving them this advice. If people do not come to us, then certainly we need to pick them up as part of a compliance process, which is what happens when people go out now and do this without telling anyone. So whether this is going to continue, possibly, we hope it will be less because people have a clear, easy avenue or easier avenue to open the discussion with us and to see whether they fit in an accepted development subject to requirements category, or if they want a higher level of use, then the assessment level goes up to code, goes up to impact. So it invites the conversation, and we hope that we will be able to have this conversation with people without actually having to look them up and chase them up through the region.
But that then comes me back to, we have had situations, many situations as I understand it, where people have sniffed the wind, and now we've got campers all here, there, and everywhere. They haven't come to council, and we've had to engage in a bit of an enforcement activity to identify that, to inform them what they're, the amendments that Councillor Hodge is proposing proposes to continue that open approach within parameters on greater than 40 hectares. So that but anything under 40 hectares, they have to come to us.
Yes, through the chair. When they come to us, if they fit with the requirements which are stipulated in the table, they don't need to go through the process of lodging an application for assessment. What they need to do is they have to pay their infrastructure charges. If they don't fit with those requirements, it bumps up the level of assessment to a higher level. They still have to comply with the requirements, in other words. And we do compliance checks on these places.
But I think what Councillor Clifton was saying, if the property is under 40 hectares, it comes to code assessment.
That would be correct, because the requirement in here, in the table, is that it goes to code assessment, and there are a number of criteria in the code assessment, which for 40 hectares is one of them. So if it doesn't comply with that one, it automatically gets bumped up to the next one.
Councillor Cardew.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Now I am confused. I understand that acceptable development means there's no application process required, and that was one of the main points was to remove red tape and to allow people, landholders, to be able to have this activity on their property without having to go through red tape application processes, which is fine. I think we've agreed on that. The bit that I'm now finding difficult to digest is infrastructure charges. If there's no application, what infrastructure charges are we talking about?
Through the chair, Kerry might be able to answer that better than me, but essentially what happens is that a user, even if it's accepted development, if it puts a loading on council's infrastructure, then the user needs to pay for that on a user page.
But through nature-based tourism, as this here, they're on farms, they're on rural properties, there is no water,
And councillor, you are correct there. So the infrastructure charge will be far less than it would be for, say, a lot in town, which has all the services, because you only pay for the infrastructure that you use. But in this case, this puts an extra loading on the transport network in particular, and on parks and open space.
So how would we charge, how would we do it?
So through the chair, you currently levy charges on accepted development for other forms of development. Ordinarily, it's triggered at the building permit stage. but otherwise it's triggered through a general audit of what's occurred in the last sort of quarter. And then if infrastructure charges haven't been paid, an infrastructure charges notice is issued. So it will operate in exactly the same manner, just for a new use. Councillors, if I could suggest that I think a really great approach to this would be to have a fact sheet with a tick checkbox on your website once the policy is endorsed, which makes it really easy for people to use. And it would also suggest at the end that the key step is to notify council that you're commencing the use, which is a critical trigger to issue the infrastructure charges. And it's a really simple way, without having to force landowners to go through the planning scheme, for them to do an assessment as to whether or not an application is required.
Councillor Clifton?
Yeah, I accept that we've got the situation now where we've got many people who have not approached council. Now we're going to change, we're going to create some rules. What forces those people to come to council? Otherwise we're in the role of going into every second property and saying, oh, crikey, you've got those people down there. You're going to have to pay for those. There's no incentive in the accepted development model for landholders to come forward. And of course, this is my point about enforcement. It says, what does it says? 6. I mean, we know in many circumstances it ends up being much greater than 6, and also including camping, which is not canvassed here. I'm not asking, if I'm speaking rhetorically, really. I'm not asking you to answer that, but what I'm saying is true though, isn't it? Yeah.
So the Chair,
Yes, Chair.
I think the incentive here is that currently, if we go out there, for instance, on a general rural precinct or road hectare precinct and see an activity occurring of this nature, we tell them, look, you need to put in an application with council, you need to potentially engage a planner, you need to lodge this application, have this application assessed and pay your infrastructure charges. Otherwise, you are basically having an unlawful use here, which is an offence under the Planning Act. If these amendments can go through, we are in a position in many cases to tell them that up to a certain level of use, you don't need to lodge in an application. You only have to comply with these requirements. You will still need to pay the infrastructure charges, but you do not have to lodge an application and go through that formal assessment and the extra costs that incurs.
Councillor Hodge?
Yeah, and yeah, thanks very much for that. And I understand that. Otherwise, if you don't, we'll have to make it code, which we don't want to do. It's more red tape. So, and the other requirements, of course, is which they've got to check is that it's 100 metres from any boundary. So, which is fair. So, yeah, there is commitments they have to do. It's just that we've taken the red tape off and let it be self-assessable instead of code. So, because that's correct.
Look, councillors, I'll say a few words. I mean, it's this council's hand has been forced here. I mean, this activity's already been happening without any rigour applied to it by council. So we've already got problems that are occurring where neighbours are being disturbed, and perhaps some operators are pushing things to the very limit on their particular parcels of land. I have a little bit of concern about under the general rural precinct. I'm generally aligned with Councillor Hodges' alternative motion today, but I think when we look at that general rural precinct, when we move from the accepted development of up to 6 RVs, and then we go to another code accessible, so then we move to code accessible, but we can go up to 20 RVs. It's my personal view that our move, we've got to apply the rigour, but we just need to be a little bit more cautious, because I think the code accessible there under the general rural precinct for up to 20 RVs is, I really think that should be coming to council. I think that should be impact accessible. If they can go to 20, if they want to go to 20, I think it should be impact accessible, because that is a very significant jump. And I think councillors should be making the decision whether someone could go to 20. That's my personal view. So that's, I'd be asking Councillor Hodge whether he'd consider changing code to impact on that one there. Otherwise, I'm probably happy with the alternative motion. Not that we've moved and seconded the alternative motion yet, but that's what we've been talking around.
Through the chair, might I suggest that rather than automatically going to impact for any more than 6, that potentially if council considers 20 too much, you consider another metric for code? Because if you remove that centre component, anyone who goes to 7, for example, in that precinct will automatically trigger an impact accessible application. And the intent of the code assessment is to pick a reasonable metric that council would generally support but want to have a closer look at.
Gotcha.
So potentially if 20 is considered too high, you might contemplate 15 or 12 or something that is a less significant impact, and then everything above that becomes impact accessible.
Look, that's possibly good advice, and I'd put a number of 10 out there. You know, perhaps up to 10 is code accessible. Anything beyond that, it becomes impact. So that way we're just taking, you know, we're taking a cautious first step rather than just opening up to, that's my personal view, councillors. Councillor Clifton.
I think the interesting question is when it moves from sort of relatively casual nature-based tourism into the establishment of a caravan park. Now, and I think the Mayor's points are well made. At some stage, we'll have to decide whether it's low-level nature-based tourism type casual activity. After that, when it becomes a caravan park, 20 makes it a caravan park. You know, so I would support what the Mayor is saying in terms of a step approach.
Okay, if we could maybe say under the accepted development, change from 6 to 4, and the code go to 10.
I'd be happy with that. Councillor Cardew.
Well, I mean, I think 6 is fair enough. I mean, 6 is a reasonable number for accepted development. But I do agree with the Mayor. I think, I think 10 is a reasonable figure for code. I wouldn't play with the first one. I'd play with the code accessible one, and bring it back to 10. 20, I agree. 20 is probably too many, especially if you're going to bring it down to 40 hectares. So I'd be happy with leaving the first one alone. The first one's fine. The acceptable development for me is fine. But the code accessible, I agree. Maybe bring it back to 10, and then see how that goes. Nick, we can always change it later.
And Mr. Mayor, if I may, then you're suggesting then, although you haven't said it, you're inferring that anything over 10 becomes impact assessment.
Yes, that's right.
That's correct.
It's just related to which precincts are we speaking?
This is just the general rural.
General precinct.
Just the right-hand side.
Yep, got it, understood.
So, Kelly, you have any final comments on that? If we're looking at the general rural and we've got 6 RVs as accepted, and then if we move down and have up to 10 RVs as code, is that a reasonable approach?
Through the chair, I think that's a very reasonable approach. I think this is a very considered approach to introducing this new metric, and what I would recommend council does is monitor the activity from 12 months from the time the scheme amendment's made, get a feel for what's coming in, what the changes are, whether you think it's gone too far or not far enough, and then it's simply a matter of reviewing it from there if we think we haven't got it 100% correct. So it's certainly a more simplistic planning system amendment going forward if we haven't got it quite right.
Very good. Thank you. Do we have, would a councillor like to move the motion?
Yes. Just making sure that is 10 now.
It will be,
Yep.
it's in,
Can't do it in
Donna's
course.
image and I can't change it, but once I get the table, I can fix it.
Okay.
So,
So as it is, with the other amendment to 10 RVs on code accessible.
And the correction of the 40 hectares later in the, yes.
okay, so councillor Hodge is moving his amendment with his alternative motion with the two amendments. So the code accessible is reduced from 20 down to 10 RVs, and also in that same box, 60 hectares is reduced to 40 hectares. So councillor Hodge is moving that. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Cardew is seconding. Anyone wish to talk further on this one? Okay, those in favour? Carried. Would you like him recorded against? No. So carried 5-2. Thank you. Okay, item 12.2. Development options 15 to 25 Moores Road, Atherton. Could I have a mover to open this report for discussion, please? Councillor Clifton, moving, and Councillor Wilts. Those in favour? Carried, thank you. Councillor Clifton.
Thanks, Mayor. I'd really like to ask, I've had discussions with, some informal discussions with a number of people and with the CEO about the options that were put forward for council to consider. And I have questioned whether the full commercial option should have been placed there for our consideration. And I would therefore like to ask the CEO to give us a bit of an update on potential other option and the pros and cons of that option. And that is to go straight to the market with an expression of interest.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. That, I just draw your attention to page 25 of the report, which does state that our concerns in relation to going straight to an expression of interest are that it may create uncertainty for the developer and delay the process somewhat, or more likely, in my opinion, and in our experience, it won't generate a lot of interest with the zoning as it stands. And our proposal is that we assess the suitability of it for rezoning, establish that. It isn't to say that we have to then proceed with the application. That would be the time to consider the disposal options, which could include an expression of interest, which is only a mechanism to dispose of the land or to dispose of part of the interest in the land if we wanted to consider a joint venture once we understand the suitability of it. That's also possible under the provisions that allow us to have joint ventures and so forth. I can't remember exactly what that's called now, but we can. Our power to enter into those type of commercial arrangements, which is used quite sparingly in local government, but remains an option. I think that's why we didn't go into it in more detail. It's simply at this early stage we've said, let's see if it is suitable to rezone and then consider all disposal options, including joint ventures, expressions of interest, etc., etc. So I do realise that it seems drawn out, but we ultimately, in terms of rezoning, should be best placed to fast track the rezoning would be the council itself.
Thanks, Mr. Nicolai. Thanks, CEO. I have been very enthusiastic about this proposal, and as Councillor Cardew continually refers to red tape, and I'm not suggesting this is a red tape at all, but my haste reflects my enthusiasm and given the desperate state of housing need we have in this area.
Completely agree, Councillor. Whether this is the most suitable site, that's still to be assessed. But, and as we saw with the amendments to the economic development incentive policy earlier, we are seeking to do all we can to get some medium density housing happening, and this is another positive step in that process. Unfortunately, with the zoning that piece of land has, we can't make it a fast process, if you like, to go at the speed that we do appreciate you would like to achieve.
Very good. Councillors, do we have a mover of the officer's recommendation? Councillor Clifton's moving the officer's recommendation. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Wilts. Any discussion on this, councillors? Those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll take a break. We've got our garden competition awards, but we'll take a break now and have morning tea following the awards. Thanks very much.
Construction camp.
Yeah, well, okay, councillors, we'll reconvene at 10:41. And I believe we're up to item 13.1. Finance report, August 2022. Do I have a mover of the officer's recommendation? Councillor Hodge. A seconder? Councillor Hayden. Councillor Hodge.
Okay, yeah, just a few things. I understand the manager of finance will be debated. Just because the fees and charges were up 42%. Where our budget was 541,000 and actually 771. Now that's an extra $229,000. Now I think in the report it says the increase in that was due to more sales in caravan parks. So yeah, so that's very interesting. So it'd be good to actually have a look at that.
We can provide more detail about that as part of the budget review next month. Well, so the middle of next month, so we're not talking about a couple of weeks down the track, and look at what the breakup of that was for you, Councillor Hodge.
The other one was, I asked two questions, one about breaking our term deposits, which are at 1.1% and 1.9. If we break, we should be able to break those and get them reinvested. I did get an answer from the finance manager, so you'll look at that, and of course there could be some substantial savings there. The other one was about there were some write-offs. She's answered me that question as well in sundry letters. Now the other one I want to look at is just for people who are watching, councillors. Mark's already given us the 300% increase in the project management cost for the Duncan Brown Bridge, and you would have seen that response where the majority of it was budgeted for our officers to do the project management, but because of staff levels now, I was going to do the whole lot, so that's the reasoning why.
Yep.
Now the other one is, it may be a bit of an explanation. It's the very last one in the variations. It's to BNT Silver Proprietary Limited for $24,000. It says the variation 5 defect repairs, stage 1 payment. If it's a defect, why are we paying? That's my question.
What page is that, Councillor?
That is page 40 down the bottom. The very last one.
Yep, so if I may through the chair, thanks for that question, Councillor Hodge. So in stage one of Brooks Road, as you are aware, we got a council endorsement to apply a different methodology to stabilise the pavement and include the rehabilitation of the whole width of the road. When the contractor wanted to seal the full extent of stage one, there were 2 sections on that road where there was an underlying issue with water within the pavement that basically prevented, at that time, the stabilising to work. So there remain soft spots within the pavement. So we discussed how we could rectify those areas. So they're not due to defects of the contractor; they're inherent defects within the subsurface of the road. So we did create a variation to rectify that in accordance with the approved methodology. Whilst we were working through that process, the weather improved and some of those soft spots actually dried out and hardened up. So we didn't actually have to apply all of that, but we did have to apply a little bit of this fund to stabilise at least one area where there was a bit of a dip in the road and the sun just didn't dry out the pavement.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
it's all still within the approved budget value.
No, I'm happy with that. It's not a defect of the contract.
It's not a defect of the-
Oh, no.
Yep.
All good, thank you.
One of the issues that form part of the report when we update the budget for the
Councillors, any more questions on 13.1, our finance report? Councillor Pepper.
On page 46, orders raised on local suppliers. The first third of the page, there's the amount of $51,899.76. 3-month engagement for Jen Marsh Town Planning, low go appointments. May I ask what that refers to?
Yep, through the chair. My understanding is that while I was on holidays in early parts of July, that the CEO had agreed to add some resources to the planning team while we were heavily under-resourced, specifically with the manager being stuck in Romania at the time and the coordinator resigning. So this is basically the temporary engagement through a recruitment firm of a planning resource to help out the team.
we had any requirements or amend budgets.
Thank you. Yep, I'm curious, but I've not heard of that group before.
Any more questions on this one, councillors? Okay, we have Councillor Hodge moving and Councillor Hayden seconding. Those in favour of the officer's recommendation? Carried, thank you. 13.2, infrastructure contribution update. Do I have a mover of the officer's recommendation? Councillor Hodge and Councillor Wilts. Councillor Hodge, do you like to talk to that?
Yeah, I think this comes from one of the questions I had on notice the previous meeting in regards to the contributions. I'm happy with the report in regards to what I asked about. It's probably, I needed a bit more expanded. It's not enough detail for what I really want. But what I'd rather do is workshop going certain, next month or whatever, on one of our workshops to just have a go through more detail in each of the former schemes and the current schemes. There's little things like one with the Atherton car parking. That's in the former scheme. There's $72,000 there. Maybe we could have used that money for the car park. I won't give the normal name, but one down there, the RSL. Maybe we could have used that money for that. So, yeah, it'd be great to just get a better understanding of the details.
So, through the chair, just specifically in relation to that car park, as you might recall, that was funded through external funding. So, as it was 100% funded through the local roads and community infrastructure fund, we couldn't apply the infrastructure charges to it.
I understand that that's the case. I didn't realise that that was fully
Yeah.
funded out from external. Okay.
Right.
Yeah, I understand. Sorry about that.
Councillor Clifton?
Yeah, and a similar question, in not complete ignorance, but I noticed that Yungabara car parking, $25,000, we did the car parking at the back of the hall recently, and we didn't bituminise it, for a number of good reasons, but I'm wondering whether these sorts of funds can't be used for that kind of charge.
I would have to take that on notice, because obviously the infrastructure charge is for trunk infrastructure, and I'm not sure if a car park at the back of a community facility is considered trunk. So I'd have to take that on notice.
I don't really mean you to take it on notice. I mean, these are the sorts of questions that it would help councillors, me as well as Councillor Hodge anyway, understand what the constraints are. We've not ever had one of those workshops.
Yeah, okay,
before.
no, that's fair enough.
Yeah.
Councillors, any more discussion on this one? Those in favour of the officer's recommendation? Carried, thank you. Item 13.3, application to purchase state land, Jack May Park. Do we have a mover of the officer's recommendation? Councillor Bilning and Councillor Wilts, seconding. Councillor Bilning.
Yeah, through the chair, look, I just like to state that I support the officer's recommendation. The primary school in Malanda is continuing to grow, and they need to expand to meet those needs. So I think it would be a good decision to make to support.
Thanks, Councillor Bilning. Anyone else like to talk to this one?
So it's an extremely modest piece of land.
65 square metres.
I'm true.
Those in favour of the officer's recommendation? Carried, thank you. Item 13.4, application for road openings, Aurora Court, Aurora Circuit, Bellamy Drive and Malanda Showgrounds. Do we have a mover of the officer's recommendation? Councillor Cardew, and seconder, Councillor Wilts. Councillor Cardew?
Thanks, look, I support the report, but it's just a good example of government bureaucracy gone mad once again. Left it up to local government to fix it. That's all I have to say.
Councillors?
Well, at least we're here to fix it, Councillor Carden.
Okay, those in favour of the officer's recommendation, 13.4. Carried, thank you. $13.5, Community Grant Program 1, July 2021 to 30 June 2022, overview and policy update. Do I have a mover of the officer's recommendation? Councillor Bilning. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Clifton. Councillor Bilning.
Look, I haven't got anything more to say, apart from the community grant continues to be well received by the community. And I think the second part of the amendment, which talks to school PNCs being eligible to access, just in the same process any not-for-profit organisation can do, is a good thing.
Fantastic, thanks Councillor Bilning. Anyone else like to talk to this one? Those in favour of the officer's recommendation? Carried, thank you. 13.6, Heavy vehicle, national regulation, HVNR, delegation of statutory powers. Do I have a mover of the officer's recommendation? Councillor Wills and Councillor Hodge, seconding. Councillor Wills?
No, I think the officer's recommendation is appropriate in these circumstances.
Very good. Councillors, any comment on this one? Those in favour of the officer's recommendation? Carried, thank you. Item 14, notices of motion. Don't believe we have any today. Item 15, business without notice. Councillor Bilney.
Yes. I'm proposing a motion that council reduce the fee for an application from a not-for-profit or non-commercial entity for a permit to conduct a prescribed activity on council-controlled area or roads from $152.50 to nil. Furthermore, that council refund or reimburse organisations that have been levied this fee from the period commencing 1 July 22. The reason behind this request is that I've had a couple of instances come to me about being charged a fee, and whilst council has endorsed the fees and charges scheme, I don't personally consider that we fully understood the ramifications of that fee. There is an instance where you've got someone like the Ravenshoe RSL sub-branch who wants to have some commemorations for Remembrance Day. They've gone through the process of making an application and they've been levied a fee of $152.50 to hold that event. I personally don't believe that that was the intent, and of course by my motion, I'd like that to revert back to nil. I understand that there may be some issues with charging nil. If that being the case, I'd like to strike out the actual line that currently allows it to be charged from the fees and charges.
It is the local law that requires it to be charged and requires those applications to be accompanied by a fee. So just a point of clarification, this was more than an inclusion in the fees and charges. It was the subject of a separate, albeit email type report from the manager at the time, where it set out the reasons for that. And part of that reasoning is that it is meant to be accompanied by a fee. Councils have a mind to make that nominal, then make it $1 or $5 rather than nil. I think I responded to that this morning.
So there's no ability for council to actually delete that as a line item in.
Well, it was picked as something of an anomaly in that we were not requiring it to be accompanied by a fee, but our local laws say it should be accompanied by a fee. Yeah. That fee clearly can't be nil, but it can be $1. It's like a lease to have, for the lease to have validity, it has to have a payment. There has to be a payment made for it. What's the word I'm looking for? There has to be consideration, that's the word I'm looking for, for the lease to be valid, and this is a case where our local laws say it should be accompanied by a fee. And it's not, except that it wasn't there for a long time, but it was picked up, and when it was considered to be at $152.50, there was also a financial analysis of what those fees may then bring to council. That was also supplied to all the councils by a manager and then included in one of the one of our workshops, our budget workshops around revenue raising measures. So it was discussed extensively, except that we may not have appreciated what the impacts would be or how community groups would respond. It's different from saying that it's sort of a new fee, I suppose.
Councillor Cardew?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Gary, can that, if we levy that at $1, can we also have some wording in there to the effect that council may or may not choose to collect that $1?
I don't think so. That's more difficult to do. Yeah, it's difficult to have a fee that's nil.
Especially if it's a requirement for local laws.
Yeah, I think when I gave advice earlier in the week around this matter, I suggested that maybe it should be reduced to $50 $30 or $40, which remains somewhat notional, but still sufficient to give it substance, if you will. There is a processing. The reason for it is that we have to process these applications, and the report that the manager provided at the time, there's a lot of time for a lot of people goes into processing those applications. Some end up on my desk, camping for the particular events at, here in Atherton and things like that. So there is quite a bit of time and in recognition that we want to have that user pays where it's appropriate. The fee was suggested, it was accepted by council at the time, but I think a reduction in the fee, if it's causing undue, if it's dissuading community groups from having events to raise money, well, we didn't intend that outcome, that's accepted. To reduce the fee, if we make it $1, then obviously it becomes a bit of a silly transaction, and the cost of processing it wouldn't work. But if we make it $20 or $40, I mean, that's clearly a matter for council. They can set whatever level of fee they see fit. There should be something in place to give the local laws, having identified the issue, it's not appropriate just to ignore the wording of the local laws. It's more appropriate to fix the local laws such that the fee is not required for those types of groups.
So what sort of process, Gary, do we need to go through to change the local law?
I haven't applied my mind to that. It's a bit of a process.
Yeah, so there is, council has to adopt a process to amend the local law. If it's a fairly minor change, then things such as state interest checks and any competitive provision of assessment doesn't need to occur. But we'd probably have to have a look whether this would, I'm not familiar with the provisions that Gary's talking about in terms of the charging of the fee, or whether there's a way that we can deal with that in a simpler way where we don't need to amend the local law, but perhaps we could take that element of the question on notice and get back to it.
Would it be prudent if Councillor Billedy changed his motion to $1 for the fee, and with the option that you have council officers investigate the possibility of amending the local law in the near future?
We'll go Councillor Clifton and Councillor Hodgson. The second part of it, the issue of collection is the second. You've got to establish a contract. Offering, there's got to be some level of consideration for obligations to flow back and forth in a legal sense. I'm sure Phil will confirm that. The issue of collection of whatever monies we decide is a secondary issue. So I would say we shouldn't, and if it's $1, it can stay in our books, and then a sleight of hand at the end of each year, you simply just write that off. If there's been 20 of them, so it costs us $20, it's an accounting sleight of hand. I think we need to have a charge, we need to have a local law, we need to minimise the impact in this situation. So we need to have a charge for consideration to take place for the contract, for an obligation to be created on both sides. And we could reduce it to have a figure as $25 or $20.
We'll go Councillor Hodge, then back to Councillor Billingham.
Yeah, look, I agree, we have to charge something, like we give grants out. You know, all these organisations can apply for grants up to $1,000, we do that. We still have to make a profit, we just can't keep giving it away all the time, in my view. So there should be a charge, but not $152, that's too dear. And I think similar, if it was $25, I reckon that's, but it should be not $1, I think that's just ridiculous. It should make it $25, in my view. If Councillor Billing would like to change that to 25, I'd be absolutely supportive.
Councillor,
So it comes from local law number 1, clause 8(4)(c). I think that's where it was coming from. So we had never added that to our schedule of fees and charges, so we didn't actually charge a fee, and we're covering anything against the officer's time. As I say, it's one of the, look, honestly, it's one of those things. If we didn't charge a fee, I don't think anyone's going to come looking for us for that.
Councillor Bilden?
I'm just advising what the technical requirements of the
Through
local
the
law
chair.
say, that's all.
I'll put it this to you, if someone wants a birthday party at Jack Bay Park under the new nature-based tourism, they'll have to pay a fee. That's what we're saying.
If they seek to actually hire a park enclosure, that would be correct. If they're just there using the equipment and they take a picnic with them, then the answer's no. If there's other people there, there's some circumstances where an application's required. I'm merely advising you what your local laws say, and certainly refuting that this was not well canvassed prior to it being adopted.
Mr. Mayor, legal representative.
So if I can, just on that point, so under the local laws, prescribed activity is a certain threshold. So as of use rights of parks, for example, which includes, say, a birthday party under a certain number of people, don't require any approvals. It's only once the activity hits a certain threshold or meets the criteria for a prescribed activity. So if you're having, say, some sort of function where there's in excess of, I think it's around 50 people, I don't know off the top of my head, or there's things like blow-up jumping castles or different apparatus, then that would trigger the need to apply for a prescribed activity permit. So it's not necessarily that a prescribed activity is required for the use of council facilities in every instance. Those circumstances are covered in the local law by definition. So the fees don't necessarily apply for those type of low-level uses.
We'll go Councillor Hayden and then Councillor Cardew.
So I've been asking a few groups, and some of the not-for-profit organisations that are holding functions after the financial years cannot be charged and will not be charged because they actually put the application in before the 30th of June, but it doesn't matter, they're still holding this year and yet they're not getting charged. So to me, it's not even a fair playing field, as far as I'm concerned.
Councillor Cardew?
Yeah, look, I really think that we need to really have a good look at our local law, because this is another one. Two come to mind straight away, the tractor pull at Kirrai and the bull ride up here at the showground, where the local laws got in the road and just about caused a hell of a ruckus to cancel the events. I mean, that's not what we want. We got public parks, public facilities for public use. Why are we going to charge non-for-profit organisations to use our public facilities? Doesn't make sense to me. So rather than, I think we need to deal with this as per Councillor Bilney's proposed motion, but I think we also need to have a real good hard look at our local law that governs this, because it's causing us problems. This is the third one that's in a matter of months. So I think we need to sort this one out here and then have some sort of a motion on the books that we revisit our local law to get it changed so this doesn't continue to occur.
So Councillor Bilney, just a clarification on that example you gave of the Ravenshoe one wanting to have Remembrance Day.
Yep.
Was that in a park or was that in a hall?
Yeah, that's in the park.
In the park?
Yeah.
So it must be more than 50 people.
That's memorial.
Memorial Park. I would, as an amendment to that, I would make it $1. We can go anywhere until such time as we have a chance to seriously look at it and the merits of charging it. And I also agree with Councillor Cardew that we investigate that local law. So as it's...
So Councillor Wilts?
I have to agree with what Councillor Clifton said before. Like it is in two totally separate issues. I think $1 is just farcical. Make it $25 until such time as council officers investigate an amendment to the local laws.
We haven't got a mover and seconder for Councillor Bilney's motion yet. We've just been talking around the issue. Can I suggest as moving ahead, if Councillor Bilney would like to move that motion, we'll see if we can get a seconder and then we can put it to the vote. Is that okay? All right, Councillor Bilney
is moving the motion that's up on the screen, which is reducing the fee from down to $1. And also, we're asking officers to investigate an amendment to the local laws to support those groups. So Councillor Cardew is seconding that.
Can I just get a bit of clarification if you don't mind? For councillors to investigate local law, I mean, what's that going to prove? We've got to have it.
We could amend the local law such that the prescribed fee doesn't apply to non-profit saying that's not the subject of this report, I suppose. It's in council's notice without motion and minimum fee, but we could provide a report around that. But I would think that it would just exclude not-for-profits from the requirements to pay a fee, so they could make their application without fee. If we had an enabling provision that not-for-profits were not required to pay a fee, but I don't want to be held to that because local laws have to be reviewed by competent people, such as our governance officer, who can advise me then that those things are within the law and we haven't made a loophole, so to speak. But I don't know if you want to add to that.
Councillor Bilney and Councillor Cardew, would you be happy to change investigate to review? Council officers review an amendment or consider an amendment.
Yeah, review,
Is that-
with a report brought back to council for an amendment, yeah.
It'll have to be to amend the local law.
Okay, Councillor Bilney is moving that motion. Councillor Cardew seconding that motion. Those in favour of the motion on the screen? Carried. Thank you. Any more business without notice, councillors? No, thank you. Okay, our next meeting will be on the 27th of October. Thanks very much, everyone.